Hello everyone, and welcome to a new edition of the Low-Code Café, episode 34, sorry. Today it's a big one. It's a big one that I personally have been waiting for some time, and that is integrating with Google Docs, Google Spreadsheets in particular. And this is something that I'm eager to see as well, because this is a big use case, and probably you are aware of AppSheet. For example, it's a competitor in the no-code space, so it's not low-code, but they were bought by Google last year just for this purpose, to build apps out of Google Spreadsheets. So very interesting use case and very big use case. Cool. So for those of you that are new to this webinar, know that it's a weekly webinar. We do it every Wednesday, and it's where we bring together our community and our team to discuss product feature, what's coming, but also do hands-on low coding on Plantain app. We also learn from support stories and have exchange questions and feedback with the participants. Sometimes we also have guest speakers, so if you have a good use case, a good message, something that you'd like to show, we'd love to host you in this event. This event is recorded, and then all recordings are published on our YouTube channel. We already have 33 hours of Low-Code Café, so 3 seasons and a bit. And also there are a lot more videos on our YouTube channel, some very small videos regarding feature demos or how-tos. So I encourage you to explore it to find out new techniques, new tips and tricks that you can use in your low-code projects. Cool. So without much introduction, I would like to invite Reza Garrow to give us a introduction, overview of what's coming in the latest and hottest release so far. I would say I got the chance to demo it last week at the DNN Summit and was very impressed with it. I think the participants was very impressed as well, because I got some very good feedback and some very good follow-up emails afterwards.
Thanks, Bogdan. Yeah, and you know, if you missed last week, we dedicated the whole Café to walking through that release and what's coming up. So I won't go into too great a detail, just that we first, it is release 1.12. A lot of work on workflows, on logging, and giving you access to more logs. Several new features, better security enhancements, important security improvements, both within the product and how the role-based security is enforced, as well as upgrading some of the libraries, third-party, that are powering some of the features inside of Action Form and Action Grid. So this is a very good and important release, both in terms of getting your hands on some new goodies that will empower and speed up your development, but and stabilize it, but as well as making sure that you're running secure. We always, and as we've grown as a company in the last year that I've been here, we've put in some better processes and getting a little less startup cowboy, if you will. And so one of those is that we always update our own internal sites and some of the ones that are external facing that power us as a company and are built with Plantain app. Ran into a little bit of issues with the upgrade process. And part of our processes is making sure we communicate out ahead of time that we're going to be doing things that could potentially impact customers. And so we have kind of some tighter windows to work in now. And so we ended up having to roll back, just kind of ran out of time the other night. We're going to be upgrading again tomorrow. Once these last couple sites of our own are in place, and they bake for a couple days, I mean, a lot of testing has gone in, but until something meets the real world, you don't know for sure that all is well. And so that's just what we want to do. I do have several of our sites updated and I've been working with some of you all and have early access and have been helping us with client testing. Overall, things are looking and going really, really well. I'm confident that it's a good release. So if you need things ahead of time or early access, just reach out to me or Bogdan or hit us up and I can make it available ahead of time. Once we publish, it's available everywhere. And so that'll be coming early next week, and just needing to finish our upgrades. So that's where we are there, and full spread of everything you're getting will be in the release notes, but as well as in last week's Low Code Cafe. That's it for me this week. I'm going to keep it tight, and leave plenty of time for Radu to build.
Great. Well, let me jump in here then. So in my From the Trenches segment today, just a few things to talk about. I've added a new low-code feature focus, and so if you haven't subscribed to that, well, good idea. You should. Let me see if I'll make sure to post the links for that. But well, I'm not going to go through the new item that I've put in is adding actions to form field change events. It's a very cool use case that came up through our community forum. And so, for example, I'll just demonstrate how it works. It's a very simple technique, and spend the 5 minutes to look at that video. But one of the things that we do on the help desk is that we say essentially the same things many times, and so we need the ability to reuse some phrases. So I built a quick use case of what this scenario might look like. I have a number of phrases like, we recommend that you perform a backup of your system before upgrades, and I'm just going to add one more phrase here to this list right now. And so it's going to be about, I'm going to call it my downloads, but it's just letting you know where you can get your downloads. And so now we've added that to the list of phrases. So here's the new feature. If we go to our, this is a simulation of our support desk where we're composing a response back to you after you've done a ticket. And we have this list of standard phrases that we could do. For example, we could do the My Downloads choice, and it just automatically populates. Just as soon as you select, it automatically populates. So on the change of this standard phrase, we're adding to the bottom. And then we can say, for example, we hope that resolves your issue. And we could say, hi, Jim, whatever. So we can manually change it and then add phrases to the end. So it's a fun use case, and it works both with drop downs or text or really anything that has the on change event. And so I recommend that you check out that video. Very simple technique, makes your screens more interactive. I wanted to call, we've touched on this before, but we have a compatibility matrix that talks about minimum and maximum DNN versions. Our compatibility between what modules sets are compatible with what .NET Nuke versions. There's some .NET Nuke versions that that, for example, aren't supported at all. 9.4 never supported, never will be. So just calling attention to this, and this link will also be on your on the chat window here in a minute. And then another one that I wanted to talk about was backups. It's not the law, but it should be. I'm working with a client right now who applied an update and ran into some problems, and turns out his hosting server, his hosting company hadn't been doing the daily backups that they committed to doing. But it's just so important to have a good backup in the unusual event that installing any of our patches or the .NET Nuke patches, whatever you're installing, always have a backup. And if you're not familiar with it, again, in our compatibility page, there's this DNN platform upgrade guidance. It gives the step-by-step of how to do that. And it talks about preparing and how to do a backup. So we've kind of linked everything having to do with that topic in together on that one. And then finally, I just wanted to mention the community portal. Again, the idea that we had this week on this, that was behind this feature that I just demonstrated and added a low-code feature focus, that idea came off the community portal. So when you engage with us and tell us your ideas and how you solve things or what your problems are, it helps us communicate that out in many different ways. And beyond that, I just wanted to thank, I thank our community for participating. And if you're not part of that, I encourage you to jump on over to the community portal, and that link will be on there too. It's the same login as you have for our module site, so you should be able to just directly log in and either post a question or help out. And we've got a great community that has been doing a good job at answering the questions. We jump in where we can, and we're encouraging our team to jump in and help on those as well. So that's from the trenches this week. And next up, we have Radu with the main event.
Hello, everybody. I changed a little bit the setup. I'm at the office today. Hopefully you can hear me fine.
You're good.
Cool. Then let me share my screen and we can start. All right. So let me give you a brief introduction of what I'm going to show you today and how I personally got involved in doing some of the stuff that I'm going to show you. So we are working on the initiative of the Low Code Academy, which will hopefully in a few weeks is going to bring the first course of Plant and App and Low Code. But that being said, one of the chapters in the course that we are working on was an introduction to the APIs that Plant and App has. And a dilemma of mine was, well, there are two things. You can either consume an API by doing a server request, or either another system can consume your data, your APIs. But which will be a good system to show, to demo how you can pull data from a Plant and App instance. So after days of thinking, I just thought that why not pull some information in a Google spreadsheet, in a Google Sheet. And after that, I just did a 3-minute Google, and I found a tutorial, and I just started working on trying to pull some of the information that we have through an API in a Google Sheet. So, and as a result, let's say I got this. What's this? Well, the main thematic of the first course is of the beginner, the fundamentals of low code is going to be how you can build your own ticketing system. And I was thinking, well, why not pull the statuses and how many tickets are in a status in a Google spreadsheet, and maybe after that, why not maybe do a chart or something. So the thing was that now this is a instance that we are working on recording videos with a colleague of mine, Patrick, and we said, okay, let's take all the statuses and push them in a Google Sheet. So the result was this. Now the funny part here is that I can change any of the statuses here of any of the tickets, and well, as expected, well, it's not going to update by itself, but there are 2 triggers to update the data. It's either I found a way to add in a menu item, and I can say get statuses to refresh the statuses, for example. And what's this doing is basically going and calling a custom API that I did in the instance, and pulling the data, updating those columns, and over those columns I have this chart here. This can be one way of doing it. On the other way, for example, I can maybe choose other statuses as well. I found there's a way that you can add triggers, and each time the spreadsheet loads, it's gonna do the API call again. So every time you open or refresh the page, or refresh the tab, basically, it's gonna pull fresh data from the API and reconstruct whatever. If you have charts or if you're only interested in the information here, that's a good way to start. How I did that was, and I have the tutorial. Maybe I can. Give me 1 second, please. Where's the chat? I can paste the tutorial that I took to do this. The idea was that the Google spreadsheet have something called script editor, and basing doing that tutorial right there, I was able to write like a very small amount of JavaScript basically to do the server request and pull the information into the spreadsheet. Come on. Yeah,
Radu, I'll just say, don't worry about getting your code. We'll post that with the Low Code Cafe tomorrow when the episode goes up. We'll put it in the comments.
All right. So the idea is that this one is my first attempt. This is only my first attempt, and this is only, well, as you can see here, this is only working with that specific API that I specifically built for this thing that we want to show into the Low Code Academy course. Now, let me close this and I will continue my story. And after doing this, I think one day after doing this, I just thought about, well, why do I need to create a custom API when I already have all the APIs for all the entities are already generated for me? I don't need to do anything regarding the APIs. I just need to integrate with them. I have all the information I need. I have the security in place. I have a list of all items. I have individual items. So
because Plantain app generates all that stuff automatically.
Exactly, and after a day and expanding on the script that I did, I actually came up with let's say first iteration of a script, which is not really bigger than what I showed you earlier. And I think this is the script that Dale is talking about, where you can only go and configure those parameters here, for example, and it's gonna pull information from any entity or any Plantain app instance that you have. So it's that simple. You just get this code, paste it. You say what's the domain, what's the method, what's the API method that you want to pull, and because all the APIs are JWT secured, you're gonna have to specify user and password and a role limit. And how this translates to in terms of what you need to do inside a Plantain app instance, well, not very much, but there are a few key things that we'll need to touch on. So let's move to the Plantain app instance, and let me show you some of the things that I had to set up before continuing with this script and how this works. First of all, inside the configuration, I started by creating a new role, which I called reporting services. And why I did this is because I want to create a role that is only able to read the entities, the data that I want to report on. And after that, I created a new user reporting at my domain, which I put into that specific role. And by doing this, I enable this user to have access to read some of the entities that I want to report on. And how that translates is that individual, for example, my contact and my type entities now have read permission for the reporting services to read all the entries. While expanding on this application, you can have multiple roles that have different permissions of doing stuff, but the reporting permissions only need to read all the entries, so they can be added and displayed into a spreadsheet. So those are like, create a role, create a user, and be careful to all the entities that you want to give access to give the specific role, in my case reporting services, to give them access to read all the entries. let's say the second thing that you'll need to look at is that the API security is a little bit more tighter than so let me put it in another way, and maybe if I can show you, that will be even great. The problem is that by default, all the APIs that are automatically generated by Plantain app are restricted for the cross-domain policy to only domains associated with the current portal. So what this translates to, you only in this case, only your domain basically can access and call those APIs. But in reality, right now, what we're doing is that we are accessing those APIs from the Google servers. So that means that we'll need to either leave it public, which I did because it was easier, or either identify the Google domains that are doing the requests and specify them, including yours and the Google, if you feel like it's safer to do like that. But keep in mind, this is more of a restriction when you're doing like front-end requests from JavaScript, for example. But the main security feature here is the JWT access, and the JWT access here is gonna say which roles can read this, basically can read this entity. And because I added a reporting services by default in the entity, the automatic configurations also is including the reporting services. The idea here is that, like in, let's say in a mobile app, the trick here is that because we are creating a user and putting the user in a role, and that role has access to read the data, whenever that let's say fake user or the reporting services user in this case is accessing the API, well, in that situation, I also have an identity who's accessing my system. So only people that have that username and password will get access to through this API, or either citizen developers, managers, admins, any credentials will work. So that's why you see here that I'm asking for a user and a password. Because each time the reporting service, this user, so this basically this script is calling that API, I know who accessed my data. So if I want, I can create audit logs or anything that I want based on who is accessing my information. So those are like the things that you need to prepare. Nothing much, just basic in a short description. Just create a user and set it in a role. That role just give access to all the entities that you want to read, and be careful to set up the cross-domain policy properly. And don't worry if you forget, you're gonna get an error. It's gonna be very specific that the domain that is calling the API is not allowed. So if you get that error, you can come back and modify the cross-domain policy here. So in terms of what you need to do in the Plantain app, well, that's basically. Now, as I said, I don't want to go into many details inside the script. They are gonna make it available when I'm gonna post this video on YouTube, I think. But the idea here is that I'm authenticating the user, then I'm calling the API that you specify here, in my case contacts, which is actually it's actually calling the contacts, the all get or return all the information about contacts in a JSON format. So I'm specifying this. I want this method to be called, and after that you put the user and the password that can access the Plantain app data, and the role limit is something that it's you can leave it as it is. It's something a setting for this specific API to know how many entries you want to get for basically here it's saying read all the contacts, and you have to specify a role limit. You want 10, you want 100, you want 1000, you want as many as you want. That's an option that needs to be passed. If you need, you can change it, but the rest is here, adding the item into the menu and everything else. And let me show you how everything looks from after loading the script. So as you can see here, I'm getting all the informations like the type. Maybe I should show you the correspondent also in Plantain app. So those are my contacts. The first name, the last name, the email, the phone, and the type here. So those are the entries that I have here, and those are the entries that I have here. And if I want to, I don't know, for example, create a new contact, I can do that really quickly. I'm just gonna put something that we can find easy. Com 333. Okay, and I'm gonna put in a personal. So I can click add, and now again the same thing. Under the plant and app item in the menu, I can say refresh contact, or I can refresh the whole the whole page, the whole tab, and it's gonna pull in the new information. So a new entry should appear. Exactly, a new entry appeared here at the end. Oh, I think. Oh, right. My bad. This was I didn't saw that this was scrolled. So I have like my ACD, and all the information is pulled automatically directly here into the system. And also, if I decide on editing some of those informations, like Joe Doe 2, or let's say something like this, and I go and say, okay, please refresh my contacts again. Joe should get 2 here, and also a last modified and a last modified date. Oh, I think this should not be here. Keep in mind, it's only refreshing as many columns and rows it needs. So this was a test of mine, and I think I forgot a column here. Now, this is cool. I hope this is cool and you like it. But I want to show you something. I find it more interesting than this, is the fact that you can actually create, Excel or Google Sheet functions. Like, you just start typing with equal, and you say a function, not really like a sum or something, and it's gonna do a sum for you. But what I found out is that you can actually create functions that through APIs can connect to your system. And for example, I have the types ID here, as you can see, and I have the email types here, another column, but this is not brought here. This is actually a function that I build, that you specify, for example, you specify the entity, you specify the ID, in my case it's a column, and you specify the property of that entity, and it's gonna pull in a specific cell, that information. So in my case, I want to pull from the type entity the record with the ID number 1, and I want to pull up the column name. So if I go to types here, you can see that it's gonna go to the types entity, ID number 1, and it's gonna bring person, because this is the name column. So I'm gonna show you I can show you the function again, and this updates each time you refresh for example, you refresh the updates, and if everything changes here in this column, those are gonna get updated automatically. I think I need to, I need to update on these columns the function. It was updated for some of the cells, but you can see that now this basically is based on this. If I go and change this, I can change it manually. For example, if I change it to 3, it's gonna do a server request, and it say this means temporary. If I refresh again and pull the information again directly from the system, this is gonna revert to personal, because this changed to 1. So and this works, and depending on the domain you connect it to, doesn't need to, you don't need to specify the method, because you specify basically the entity, you specify the entity name, which in Plant and App also translates to a group of APIs with the same name. And for example, if I want to pull, let's say, give me a second. If I want to pull, for example, I don't know, the email address for ID number 3, let's say, I can go and say, and I'm just going to choose a random cell here. I can say equals expand. Was it expand or extend? Sorry. All right. So it's expand entity. So I can go and say expand entity, and it has 3 properties. I need to specify the entity. So in my case, I want a contact. I want to specify the the ID, which I will hard code, and I say 3, but it can be a column. And after that, I can specify which one of the properties I want. So I will say, for example, email, and this value is going to automatically compute and bring in the value from the system. Yeah.
So make sure I understand. That's the function you wrote, expand entity.
Yes, this is a function that I wrote. You can find, if you're interested in how I did it, you can find it at the bottom of the script here.
Oh, very nice, very short.
Yeah, and it can be shorter. I still have loggers. If someone encounters any issues, I have loggers here. So if you want, you can run manually the script, and I'm pulling out like loggers to see like the access token and the other informations. So, and the function will work basically the same. So if you encounter any issue, there are loggers for you to see if you get any errors. I think the most common error that I got until now was the fact that the cross-domain policy was not enabled on some of the APIs of my APIs. But that's basically. So yeah, basically from a standpoint where we are pulling information from Plantain app to the Google Sheet, this script, or what I showed you, it's a good start. But I don't need to ask, but I think all of you are thinking about, but okay, but can I pull from a Google spreadsheet to Plantain app? And the answer is yes. And I actually did this also. And for this, I'm gonna go back to I'm gonna close this for the moment. And let's go back to something like an entity there. So I built an entity called products. Nothing very complicated. It's just you know, a name, a price, a stock, and something called the remote ID. And I'm going to show you in a second why I have this remote ID. Now going back to the apps and going back to my products, I see that I have 4 products, but the nice part is that those products are actually coming from this spreadsheet here that I have, and I set up an automation that each minute in my case, it's gonna go pull in the information from the Google spreadsheet and update all the information in the products entity. And before I show you how everything was done, let me show you how it works. So, for example, I don't know. I can either update. I can update one of the names, and if it finds so this is basically the remote ID. If it's gonna go and see if 4 is gonna check for ID 4, and because ID 4 is already into the remote ID 4 is in the system, is gonna try to update the values. Otherwise, if the remote ID is not into the system, like in the next example, I'm gonna add a row, is gonna either add a row or update one of the add a row. Otherwise, it's gonna try to update the columns. It's gonna take up to 1 minute, because that's how I update. That's the time that I set up for the automation to run. But it can be done faster or slower depending on your needs. For example, I can go and it's gonna run in a few seconds, I assume, but I can just click and say run now. It updated the system, and if I go and refresh the page, we'll see that now we have Mango here. So I didn't do anything. I didn't edit manually anything, and everything is coming from the API from that Google spreadsheet. And also I can go and say an ID 5, and I want an avocado. I hope I wrote it right. And I want a price of 10 and a stock of 100, and maybe I want to reduce the banana stock by half also, and increase the price of the apples by 7. I can either wait 1 minute for this refresh, which is gonna happen. I can click run now to enforce the synchronization. And by refreshing the page, I will get apples, the stocks, and where's my avocado? This worked. All right. It seems I didn't perfected the system, but now that we are getting, I'm gonna get to show you the actual implementation. Maybe we can also identify the issue and fix it together. How this works? Well, in the automation, it's not really anything to see. Interesting, at least. It's a trigger of repeat on an interval, and it's set up to 1 minute. And after that, I'm executing a workflow. The workflow has no input parameters, and the status usually it's just a static text. So this is nothing really interesting to see here. The interesting part is when we move back to the workflows. And well, you assume that this is just one workflow, but I split the work in 2 workflows. And let's start from the sync product that you saw, and you can move to the upsert product in a second. By clicking edit, there are 4 actions that I'm doing right now. I'm doing a server request to the Google APIs, and it's just a simple GET request. If you search, for example, if you search on Google, for example, for Google spreadsheet examples, you're gonna find the basic read example. And I just copied, and I got a key from the Google Cloud Console, and I copied the API. One interesting thing that I found out is that, well, directly how Google is bringing me the information is not exactly perfect for me to load that JSON into an entity. So I had to create a small JavaScript to parse the data, to parse the data in a way that PlantaNet likes it. And let me show you how. So this is how Google spreadsheet actually brings the data. So it's bringing each row as an individual array. But we want it in a different format. So I built this workflow here that actually translates the information in a different way. And actually, what we can do, I can take the parse data and I can output it maybe as a value. So you get an idea on how the data, how PlantaNet actually would like the data to be before loading it into a JSON, so we can iterate. I can just go and execute it again. So this is basically what I'm doing. I'm taking this information in this structure, and I'm translating it in this structure. So each individual row this is the ID, this is the name, this is the price, this is the stock. This is the ID, this is the name, this is the price, this is the stock. And this is, and in continuation, this is how the load entities actually likes the data to be. So we can load it in a in-memory table, in-memory entity, let's say. And after that,
so it didn't come in from Google the way you wanted it. You translated it, and now it's in a format that's ready for load entities.
Exactly. And it's very small, and it's actually simple. I'm just taking the first row, and actually each individual row I'm taking the first row, which are the table heads, which is the table head, and actually distributing that value for each individual next entries that the Google spreadsheet does. After I'm loading that into an in-memory entity, for each individual row that I got, I'm gonna do something called execute an upsert of a product. And the upsert is something, what upsert means is either insert or update, because you don't know if you need to insert or update the product. You don't know if the item is in the system or is not in the system, because how I like to call it, the source of truth in this case is the Google Sheet. So you don't know if you have this item yet or you don't have the item. If you don't have it, you need to add it. If you have it, you need to update it. And I think the problem that I got into earlier of not seeing that entry, the mango that I added, is because something is wrong in this specific.
And that's workflow. A workflow that you built?
Yeah, this is a workflow that I built, and we can move to it and see how this works. Is the first thing is that because I'm working with the entities, I need to specify a user it's managing those entities. but moving forward after that, what I'm doing is I'm doing a SQL query and seeing, do I have an ID? Do I have a product ID? And I'm not talking about the remote ID. Do I have a product ID that is matching the remote ID? So in this case, the remote ID here in the Google Sheet is 1. So the question is, do I have an entry with the remote ID 1? And that's here I'm just asking the question, let's say like that in the workflow, because in the next step I'm gonna do something like this. If the ID is empty, I don't have that ID, I need to create the product. If I think I put the conditions, no, if if the ID is empty, that means that I need to create a product. If I found an ID in the system, that means I need to update the product. So that's why I'm calling it upsert. It's insert or update. It's a combination of the two words. And here I'm ending. So basically this is the end of my let's say logic. Oh, I think I know why this is not updating. This is my my logic on doing it. And I think now that I'm thinking, I think I know where the problem is. Going back, I'm not gonna save, and let's go back to the sync product API. Copy pasting is good, but I only went from A1 to D5, and I think in my spreadsheet the avocado is on D6. It's on the 6th row, so I need to expand the area where I'm checking for data here. So I'm gonna just do like D10 and click save. I'm gonna click update. I'm gonna, I can run the synchronization flow directly from here or directly from the APIs. Now I see that I see that I get the avocado into the system, and now if I refresh the system, yeah, I have the new row here. Yeah. Another maybe something worth mentioning here is the fact that I didn't consider in this example that what happens if you delete an entry from the Google spreadsheet, but that can be done by just checking what are the remote IDs and what other remote IDs you have, and delete then the ones that are not available anymore. I didn't go that far in this example. Otherwise, this is otherwise in this situation you can either start deleting some of the entries into your table if you have admin rights, but because how the system is built right now, you can rerun the synchronization again, and the data is going to pop up back, because the source of truth is the spreadsheet, is not the entity itself. And usually when doing this kind of setups, you will want by default let's go back to the entities. By default, for example, for the product entity, and go to the permissions. By default, the admin, citizen developer, managers, and the low-code engineer in the next version, well, they can delete entries. Well, that's how it is. But usually, all of the other entries should not be able to delete them, because again, the data source of the data is the Google spreadsheet. So if anyone wants to modify something, they should modify it here. The valuable part in building in a way, for example, how I did it here, is that the remote ID can be anything, but if you need to link into, maybe a contact can have a list of products, for example. So we can actually, I think we have some few minutes, so we can actually do this. Let's see, let's go to the entities and say a contact has, let's say, products, and let's specify the type as a list of products, and I will click save. Let's give it a minute. Cool. Now going back here to the contacts, I can assign products to I can go and assign really quick. So a few products there. I think there are some products here, but I can add the banana and I can add an apple, and I don't know. Let's add the mango again. Now you have internal IDs here. So whenever if you decide to change the remote ID or anything, they are not the information is not gonna get unassigned from this specific contact. So if I want to go into my into the Google spreadsheet and change the apple to a pear, for example, and let's do again. I don't have any time to waste, so again I'm gonna go and run the synchronization manual. But again, I need to specify this is gonna run each minute, so you don't need to worry about by doing this manually. But for the sake of this example, I'm gonna do it manually again. Remember, I assigned the apple here, but now it's a pear because it changed out. Basically, it's the information actually changed outside the plantain app, but it's actually reflecting. It's being reflected here in the plantain app assignment, in the plantain app system, because we are synchronizing the entity's information. I think from my side, I think this is my hands-on part on how we can work with the Google spreadsheet both ways. And if anyone is curious, I didn't explore it yet, but I'm definitely sure that you can actually do a two-way synchronization of an entity, both synchronizing the plantain, whenever you modify something in plantain to modify in the spreadsheet, and also when you modify something from the spreadsheet, modifying into plantain. Okay, thanks.
I love it. I love it, and it is more. It is more than I expected. I expected to see the one-way synchronization. I do have a couple of questions. I don't see anything yet in the chat or QA, but I have a couple of them until they come in. How would you do the delete? Right, so you did the upsert. How would you delete entries that are no longer in the spreadsheet? You are on mute.
All right. So how would I do it? I will most likely the first thing that we'll do. I'm going to go into the workflow, the sync product, and I will get out. Maybe I will try to extract maybe with another execute JavaScript actions, or in another way. I will try to extract only the remote IDs that I'm interested in. And before trying to update or insert anything, I will try to delete everything that I'm not interested anymore. So we can say something, and we can do something. I can expand this. I can maybe.
And you're not sharing, as a reminder.
Oh no. sorry. Now you're seeing. So I went back to my sync product and I just made some space here. But I can take my execute action, my execute JavaScript action. I can export it. I can import it back. I can put it here somewhere into the flow. And instead of getting all of those information, I can get like remote. I'm just gonna give you like a 2-minute example. It's not gonna work in the end, but I just gonna spend my remote data IDs, and after that I can try to maybe run a SQL query, which is most likely the easiest one, and say something delete from products where ID is not in, and my my list, for example, something like this, my remote data ID, and everything that I find in the system, but it's not in the remote data ID, that it means that it doesn't exist and it's gonna get deleted, something like this.
Got it. I think there is also an action to bulk update a database that does this on the entities.
Yes, there is. Yes, there is
help as well.
It may. To be honest, I will need to check to confirm, but I think it's called import. Yeah, import into database entity, which can update a whole entity into the database and re-update it. and it has the same merge only, update only, delete non-existing.
Yep,
This can actually be useful. I'm gonna be honest with you and the viewers. I forgot about it.
Yeah, I was wondering if that works, because this does it in bulk, so it will be much faster. That's like a bulk, native bulk SQL server. But not sure if you can get it to work with the different IDs or things like that.
I think I think this action is it's asking you to specify which is the ID column or reason. Anyway, I will check and come back with the answer for your question.
Yep.
So there was a question posted in the upsert. Is there a method to cache all the IDs from SQL to look up against the cache and not execute the SQL statement on each row? So just looking for efficiency, and maybe what if we got that bulk update working, that might provide all the efficiency that you would need. But that's an interesting question from Jim.
I'm not sure I'm getting the question. I don't think I'm not sure if I understand the question. Are you? Is the question basically asking me if I have the ID or not, or can I have a cache for this information if I want to do this once a minute, or is the problem here where we're updating or inserting with the action? And if the person who asked can clarify this, I'm happy to answer.
My guess is that how do we eliminate this run SQL action that gets executed for every row, right? So instead of doing for every row, maybe do it once, so you get all the IDs and you reuse, or instead of this, even better, maybe cache it globally, in a token, for example.
Well, you actually answered the question. The tokens can be the solution here. Like we can take this query that we have here and most likely adapt it a little bit, but we can go to the tokens and create. Well, I need to create a namespace first, but we can create a token, a database token. Like this, and put the query here, and after you specify the query, you can select ID from whatever, and then you can specify the cache. And basically what this is gonna do is each time you don't need to execute the query each time, because in this specific cache time, whenever you will need to pass an ID, and it's gonna give, whenever you pass the same input parameter, it's gonna give you the same output. It's not gonna touch the database anymore. And for example, we are doing the synchronization, for example, let's say once a minute, and if you cache this for an hour, then you're only gonna check for what IDs changed in just once an hour, so you can improve the speed of the flow.
Yeah, and to anticipate Jim's next question, yes, you can manually clear this cache, right? So on update, maybe you want to clear this cache on updating from other sources and things like that.
Yep, you can manually delete it.
And I think
also from an action, so from a workflow, you can control the myTokens cache.
And the button is here. This refresh icon here, so you can go into the settings and refresh the token cache.
I think if you look back on, it might have been my very first low-code feature focus, but the amazing efficiency that's built into the caching. So it's a good technique.
Also, Radu, I saw there is a Google Cloud Platform. So if you go back to the spreadsheet, there is like an add-ons menu, right? And you can say get add-ons. And here it looks like a marketplace. Is this something that we envision the Plantain app customers will have access to, so they don't have to write that JavaScript over and over again, to have it here? Do you think this is something that we'd be able to do?
Why not? Why not? It didn't pop up in my yes. I see that there are a lot of add-ons basically here that are only Google spreadsheet enabled, not other Google tools. So why not have a Plantain app extension that you can install and pull in the informations? At least for the pulling information, that can be definitely an option. And for the pulling for getting data from Plantain app into Google spreadsheet, that can function, that can work. Maybe why not in the opposite way, from Google spreadsheet to Plantain app? But another interesting thing it would be to create some. This is more of a thing that we plan in the future. Why not have workflows already prepared for you that can add into the system that already does this pulling of information from the Google spreadsheet? So there are multiple places we can add. But this is an interesting thing, and I will explore it. There are any questions, other questions?
Apparently, I'm the only guy excited about the spreadsheets.
No, I thought it was very cool. And I have customers that I'm working with that are in the midst of doing other integrations, and the techniques would translate, right? Whatever the problems are that you're coming into, and the need for that caching all play in. So I have customers that I'm going to tag onto this video just as soon as it's posted.
Yeah, and in other terms, just to give you an idea, me building this stuff in advance, the scripts that I showed you earlier took me like 2.5 hours. And for pulling informations from Google spreadsheet, I wasted more time figuring out how to enable the API keys than actually building the synchronization. So it's
good. I'll plan to get with you and get links to the different content so that we're ready to go, and that'll all be part of the YouTube video that we post tomorrow.
Sure, happy to do that.
Wonderful. So again, thanks everyone for being here again in the Low Code Cafe. Today we had a very interesting one, I believe. Make sure to give us feedback. There is a feedback form coming up after this webinar, but also reach out over email. Give us feedback on what you'd like to see next, because I think we only scratch the surface in these 33 editions with what you can do with Plantain. So the more use cases we can find and the more problems we can solve, the more helpful will be for everyone. So thanks again, everyone, for being here. Thanks again, Reza, Dale, and Radu for presenting, and we'll be seeing each other next week.